Go to Redshift menu, Lights, IES Light. In 3D viewport, you can move and rotate with your IES light, but as you can see, you don't see any results in your render view. To activate IES light, you have to load path to IES profile. And now you can see in our render view how looks our IES light, and remember that his results depend on IES profile. To see our current profile even better, we need stronger intensity. Again, you can override higher values than has our slider range. And now if you will move with your light, you can see how position affecting final result. And again, if you don't want to crank intensity way too much, you can use exposure and find intensity which is better working for you. In our course, you will get access to more than 50 IES profiles, so check them out and have fun. In shadow section, you have again softness and transparency sliders to get control over your shadows as well. Go to Redshift menu, Light, Infinite Light. Infinite Light works different than other lights, so as you can see, as I am trying to move with this light, you don't see any changes and lighting of your scene looks the same. And that's exactly as this light works, so don't be confused if you will need to use Infinite Light. If you need to get control of your light and you need to change direction, you have to rotate your Infinite Light. And now you can see in render view that is a little bit similar workflow as sunlight, just getting a little bit different results. And again, don't be confused that rotation works only in H and P axis. So if you will try to change rotation B, there is not any change whatsoever. But all other parameters of Infinity Light have the same workflow as other common lights. And in shadow section, we can see that we can use transparency, but softness of your shadows as well. And if it's not maximum value of slider enough for you, you can write manually even higher numbers. And as you can see in render view, higher values produce much more softness into your shadows. And if you are using your softness, you can as well turn on auto off softness affects gobo. Go to Redshift menu, Lights, Point Light. Point light has similar workflow as area light, so as you can see in the render view, movement affecting position and intensity of your light on your 3D object. So find position which is working for you, and after that use intensity multiplier, or you can use exposure as well to get intensity which is working very well for you. And now you can see even better how movement affecting our shadow, intensity of the light, specular, and light fall off. In shadow section, we can control transparency, softness. Again, we can override even higher numbers if we need. We have control of the samples, and also we can control softness affect gobo as well. Go to Redshift menu, Light, Spotlight. In your 3D preview, you can see representation of your spotlight. You can move and rotate with your spotlight to find your sweet spot. Position of spotlight affecting intensity, shadow and lighting area as well. Select your spotlight. And as you can see, we have access to spot section and we can change cone angle, fall off angle, and those two parameters also affecting how soft will be our spotlight. and fall-off angle close to 0, producing much more sharper results. And also we can use fall-off curve, which working as softness bias. Next we will have a look on shadows, where we have again the same softness and transparency workflow as other lights. But what is very interesting about the light, if we are using texture as our light source, you can see very interesting results and light projections which producing our spotlight. Different kind of the texture producing different kind of the results. And in chapter volumetric lights, I will show you how we can use this kind of the texture to create cinema projector or even different kind of the magic. For lighting this scene, we are using dome light, but we are not getting enough light inside the hangar. If we will turn off dome light, you can see how it looks with default light. So in case that you need to use dome light, and at the same time you need more light inside your interiors, through the windows or through the halls, you will need to use also portal light. Go to Redshift menu, Lights, Portal Light. Now we need to place our portal light to correct position. In our case, is at the window of the hangar. So you can move, you can scale, you can rotate your portal light exactly to the position which is the best working for you. And a second step is select your portal light and drag and drop your dome light into the environment shader field. And now we have connection between dome light and portal light. And as you can see in our render view, we are able to transform light inside our interior. Let's to check out our render view, how looks our interior without portal light and how it looks different when we are using portal light. Also, we can adjust exposure or intensity multiplier to get even more intensity. And if we need to change a little bit color inside our interior, also we can use tint color to get warmer or colder results exactly as we need. And as last feature, we have portal transparency. So you can change the level of your transparency exactly as you need. And if you need more transparency, you will use brighter values. If you need less transparency, use darker values. Physical Sun is part of Redshift Sun and SkyRig as well. So this time we will not go over all details, but I will show you basics to understand how Physical Sun works. For more details, check out chapter Sun and SkyRig. Go to Redshift menu, Lights, Physical Sun. Physical Sun has similar workflow as Infinity Light, but with different kind of the parameters to be more in focus how works real sunlight. So again, as Infinity Light, sunlight is not affected by changing of the position, but is affected changing of the rotation. So as you can see in render view, sun rotation simulating real position, sun on the sky, and that's the reason why you can see in your viewport yellowish or bluish colors. And also you can see the changing of the position is not affecting our sunlight. Let's go back on our rotation, and as you can see now in the render view, we also can simulate sunrise or sunset as well. Or we can switch from P to H rotation, and as you can see in render view now, we are getting different results from our sunlight. Let's to have a look on Physical Sun parameters. Select Physical Sun, and under General you can see that we have intensity multiplier. Also we can change sun disk scale, which affecting look of our shadows. As usual, bigger light scale producing more softened shadows. Next we have atmosphere section with turbidity, ozone, and horizon height. Next section we have color adjustment. So as you can see in render view, you can get more bluish, more reddish or more neutral colors. Depends on position of your slider. And if you are getting too saturated results, you can use saturation slider as well. In shadow section, we can control softness, but this time a little bit different than other lights. And we are able to get also sharper and not always just softer results. Also, we can use transparency slider to change transparency of the shadow exactly as we need. Go to Redshift menu, Objects, Redshift Sun and Sky Rig. Under Redshift Sky, we have also Redshift Sun. But as you can see, general parameters are inactive because all those parameters we are able to control directly under Redshift Sky Rig. First parameter, we have intensity multiplier. And as you can see in our render view, we have full control of intensity of our sun. Redshift Sky and Sun Rig are physically correct and working very well with the camera exposure compensation. But if we don't want to use this kind of the compensation under the camera tag, we can use non-physical intensity. And as you can see, we are getting lower intensity values. So in case that your scene looks too bright, now you will know that you have two options how correctly use Redshift Sky Rig. We have also two types of the model, and you can see difference between them in our render view. In my case, I'm always using the default option. As next, we have turbidity and ozone, and I will explain them a little bit later. We have also control of horizon height, so you can change position of your horizon exactly as you need. And as next step, if you need, you can use horizon blur, which will make your horizon transition much more smoother. So you have full control of your scene, how much of those values you need to use. As I showed you already in physical sun chapter, we can rotate with our sun, and we are getting exactly results which are producing real sun, depends on his position. I found position of the sun, which will help us to better explain other parameters. Turbidity, or if you want haziness, changing look of our sky exactly as you can see in our render view. More turbidity we are using, more has to travel our light through the dust particles. Next we have ozone, which is amount of ozone which we have in our atmosphere. If you want to see ozone changes much present, you have to lower turbidity, and now you can see it more obvious on our sun. Next parameter we have ground color, and we have full control to change color of our ground exactly as we need. You can also use picker and sample exactly color which you would like to use. It's always good start point, and after that small color correction, as you can see, we can match easily our plane with ground color or with other geometry which is closer to horizon. We have also full control of night color. Default night color is black, but as you can see, we can change on any other color we would like to see in our night scenes. But first, you have to change sun position when it's starting evening or is present already night, and that's the point when starting night color contribution. Lower is position of the sun, more night color we are using. And to get full contribution on night color, sun has to be under the horizon exactly as we know it from real world. And now when I will change position of the sun, we are not getting night color contribution anymore. Let's define position when again we can see sun. And I will show you how works color adjustment if we are changing red-blue shift. So as you can see, it's color correction, and also we are able to use saturation. So as you can see, it's exactly the same workflow as I showed already in chapter Physical Sun. In the sun section, we have physical sun parameters, And if you need more details, go and visit chapter Physical Sun. But in our Redshift Sky rig, we can change sun disk scale or sun glow intensity to customize look on our sun exactly as we need. And now we will have look how sun disk scale affecting shadow softness. And as you can see, bigger sun disk scale producing much more softer shadows. And we also can control our shadow in the Redshift Sun Shadows tab. As you can see, General tab is inactive, but still we have active Shadow tab. And there you can also override your shadows to create softer or even sharper shadows exactly as you need. Softness value 1 using physically correct shadows coming from physical light. And as I showed you before, depends on the sun disk scale. In this chapter, I will show you basics how works Redshift samples. As first step, go to Render Settings. Renderer has to be switched to Redshift, and in the Redshift section, we have Progressive Rendering section, and this section is only for our progressive rendering in our render view. Or we can call it as well IPR because it's totally the same thing. But under Progressive Rendering section, as you can see, we have not any samples, only passes. And number of passes are not affecting our final rendering, but affecting performance of progressive rendering in our render view, exactly as I showed already in details in render view chapter. But all other sections include unified sampling, affecting sampling for your final render. And in chapter Render Settings, I will show you all those parameters how works and how to reduce noise in our renders. But in this chapter, I would like to explain basics, how to clean noise from your lights, and for this example we will keep default settings, because low amount of unified samples will show you your light noise much obvious. Select Dome Light and go to the sample section. As you can see, we will start with the 4 samples. As next step, we will switch our render view to clay mode. And what is very important, we have to switch to bucket rendering, because as I already said, IPR is not showing our final samples for our final render. So if you need to tweak your samples, always switch to bucket rendering. And for speed up our workflow, we will use region. Now we can start to tweak our samples. To be efficient with your samples, Redshift recommending doubling of your amount. And as you can see what I'm doing now, it means use numbers as 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024 or 2048. So you get an idea how to continue if you need to clean your renders. And as you can see in our render view now, as I am increasing number of the samples, we are getting more and more clean result. And you can see out of our region how was grainy setup before. And now you should understand why every single light what we are using, or their shadows, needs to tweak their samples to produce clean results. In this chapter, I will show you power of dome light. If I will turn on dome light, you can see how already interesting looking our model. I spent a little bit time to find correct HDR map and values which are working for me. If I will turn on background, you will see how currently looks my HDR map projected on sphere. I created backplate as well, so now we can see how looks my scene with backplate. But after few days, I decided I would like to change mood of the image. I would like to feel a little bit more colors coming from light and maybe a little bit bluish night feelings. Let's try it out. As first step, I need to change my HDR map, and on my previews I can see which one is closer to evening mood. Now in my render view I can see how looks my new HDR map. Next step, I need to rotate with my HDR map to find sweet spot. Don't be scared to play a little bit with your rotation until you see something what is really working for you. Next step, I would like to play a little bit with hue and saturation and find balance, which will show me some more color coming from light. As I can see, I'm getting more variation than I expected. So let's turn off hue for a while to see what colors are coming directly from my HDR map. I need just a little bit saturation. Now it's starting to look interesting, but it's still not bluish. So we have to go more to the right, and here is starting blue spectrum. So let's find balance, which will look interesting on our shape. And literally in few minutes, we've been able to do changes just because we use correct HDR map. As next step, I can also increase little bit contrast and also lower exposure a little bit and little bit less saturation, because increasing contrast, it's making more saturated colors. And we can also change a little bit mood in tint when we will shift a little bit with our color. But as you can see, we are getting many powerful tools to change our HDR lighting exactly as we need.